Hello everybody and welcome back. This is weekend number 2 of the database class. And as promised, remember last time I gave you all lecture. We did 2 days straight. In fact, I covered a lot of material, which is really good. Because this weekend is all going to be about hands-on exercises and practice. So what I've done is I've got a server set up for you. Not my own server, I actually got the school to put it together for me. It's not on site, it's a renter server space. And it's not Oracle, but it's close enough. It's mySQL, which is going to work the same way. We're not going to use any of that. We couldn't use any of the Oracle proprietary stuff anyway without buying everybody a developer's license, which is way too expensive and way above and beyond the scope of this course. But what we're going to be doing is giving out, and I'm going to do it right now actually, for you guys who actually showed up on time, you'll be able to get your accounts. The other people will have to wait until later. So here's what I want you to do. And when you do this, make sure you follow my instructions. So the accounts are numbered 1 through 50. There's 50 accounts. You're going to use the account to log on to the server. Your database and everything is going to be under your account number. So it's going to say, the accounts look like this. It's going to say student 001 through student 050. There's 50 accounts. So what I'm going to do is go around the room, point at you, give you an account number. You need to send me an email message with your account number so I know which account number is for which student so that I can give you credit for participating in the activity that we're going to do this afternoon. If you participate in the activity that we do this afternoon, then you can skip one of the assignments. So I'll use the grading instead of one of the assignments. But I need to know who you are. So, so my email address, just in case you're not familiar with it, I'm expecting 50 emails to come in today, or close enough. It's B, as in Barbara, Hecker, Hecker, at itu.edu. So actually, let me put it on the board here. Use B. Hecker at itu.edu. Send me an email address, address an email to me. On the subject line, put your student number. That's all you have to do. I just need to know which student number goes to which email address. If you want in the body of the message, if you don't think I can figure out who you are by your email address, which is possible actually, put your name on there somewhere. You can put your student ID on there too if you want to. That might make it easier. So actually, let's just do it this way. So subject line is student 001 if you're number 1. Inside put your name and your student ID. That way I know who you are. So your name and your student ID, because what you get is a credit for not having to do one of the assignments, which is, might be some time-saving stuff. Plus, I'll be able to give you credit for, if your grade's kind of close, you did all the assignments, because some of you may have done all the assignments already, and you decide, well, I'm going to do this anyway, but you don't do well on the final exam or something. This will add for bonus points. So it can only help you, it can't hurt you. So some people will participate in it and some people won't. So it's totally up to you whether or not you want to do it or not. So what I'm going to do is kind of just count you off the way you're sitting right now. And I'm just going to, I know this seems kind of tedious, but I want to make sure everybody understands their number. Write your number down so you know which number you are. Okay, so yes?
So homework also done in mySQL? Is that okay?
You can do it in mySQL, yes. You can do the homework on this server as well, actually. You can do it all using this server. Okay, so let me do the tedious task of walking around. You are number 1. Remember 1, 2, 3, 4. You are number 5, 6, 7, and 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You're number 14. Remember that. Yeah. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. address an email message and send it to me right now. So we have 1 through 21 taken. So the next number starts at 22. So I should get 21 emails right now or something close to it. If you don't have a computer, you don't have it turned on, you don't have internet access, don't worry about it, do it later. Most of you have computers though, which is excellent. But if you don't worry about it. You're going to have a hard time participating, but I'm not going to recycle your number. So you can do this at home later, or you can do it tomorrow. The person who just walked in, yoo-hoo, you're number 22. Remember your number. You're number 22. Okay, so number 22 is given. So start with 23 next. Okay, no more numbers issuing. All right, so this is the start with 23. So send me an email if you can right now. That way, not only will you remember because you sent me an email and you can look in your sent folders, you know what number you are. But then there won't be any confusion. So let me tell you how to do these numbers. So if you are student 001, you could just put student 1 if you want, but you have to remember 001. So there's 50 student accounts. They're numbered student 001 through student 050. Passwords are the same as your user number, as your username. This is your new username, student 00, whatever you are. Well, you're 021, 022, if that's the case, if you were in 2 digits, or 10, 10, 010. Okay, so your password is the same as your user number, and you want to use a SSH, and people are going to go, what do you mean by that? Well, okay, so let me show you where some instructions are located. I'm going to go through this actually in a few minutes, but hands-on practice number 1 is the exercise we'll be doing in the afternoon, after lunch. MySQL class access. This is the document. When you open up this document, it looks like this one. It says MySQL lab server, student access procedures. Couple different ways of doing this. You can do it the hard way or you can do it the easy way. So the hard way is using a terminal. So if you're on a Windows machine, you can use PuTTY or you can use SSH client and the server. So you're gonna use port 22 for both actually. If you're on a Mac, you're gonna use the terminal window. So let me actually log out here because I'm actually logged in right now. I'm going to show you how this works, actually. Log out. Or exit. Let's just exit. Exit. Connection is closed. So let's go here. New window. So this is one way of connecting, if you so desire. You don't have to connect this way. I'm going to show you another way in a few minutes. But let me show you what I'm talking about. So you're going to type in SSH. I'm logging in as root because I'll be able to see all of your accounts with root. You're going to log in as student 00, whatever you happen to be, student 021, student 001. Actually, you're 001 over here. Actually, I can log in as you if you want. You want me to do that? Yeah, let's do that. Let's see so you can see what yours looks like. So I'm going to log in then as you. I gave you number 1, right? Do you mind if I do it? No? Do you mind if I log in as you? Okay. All right. So let's just see how this works. I'm a student. I'm logging in as her. And my ID here is student 001. So I'm typing in student 001. And what's my password? Well, it's the same as my name, student 001. It's immediately going to ask you to change the password. I'm going to change it back to student 001 for you. And then you'll have to change it. There's instructions actually to change it. This is because everybody knows everybody's number. So if you change your password, then nobody else can get in, right? So it makes it more confidential. If you came in late, you didn't get a number, don't worry about it. At the first break, we'll give you a number. So I'm going to put it back on student 001. I have to make sure to change it later. Okay. Ah, yeah. Password unchanged. I know it's unchanged.
Anything.
You want to come over and type one? No, anything? Well, actually, let me just exit out of you. I'll let you do it. I'll log in as myself. But this is what you're going to get. I don't want to change your password because I don't want to know what your password is. And I don't want you guys to know what her password is either. So I'm going to Control C out of here. No password supplied. Okay, so yeah, I got out. Connection got closed, terminated. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to log in as my root. So here we are, root. So you guys, the only thing different is who's you're going to log in as. So, and my password, hold on a second, I have to go find my password. Shoot. Might still be in the buffer. Uh-oh. Yep, okay, I got in. Okay, so then once I'm SSH'd in, I actually have access to a Linux server. Well, I'm on a Unix server, actually. I'm on a Unix server. I'm on a GNU Linux server, Ubuntu, actually, for that matter. So if you want to play around with Unix, you can. So if you had Oracle installed on the server, you'd go into Oracle. We have mySQL installed on the server because it's a little bit easier. For all intents and purposes, your interface to it is going to be exactly the same for the most part. So there's just slight little differences. However, you're getting access to a client-server database very similar to Oracle, but it's mySQL. In fact, you'll probably end up using that more so than Oracle, actually, in all reality. So the next thing you're going to need to do at this point is log into mySQL. So in that little document, so up here, if you read through the notes that I put out here on the screen, just so you're following along what I'm doing, just make some notes to yourself so you can do this. If you're going to use SSH, in a few minutes I'm going to show you something easier than this. I'm going to show you a GUI approach to this. But I want to show you both, just in case you can't get the GUI to work, you'll have to use it this way. So you'll immediately be asked to change your password. Your passwords are going to be the same for MySQL as they are for your regular Unix account. You'll keep this account for the entire term. It won't go away until the semester ends. Well, in our case, it's only a month, so it's no big deal. In the future, what I want to do is be able to have students have permanent accounts, so you just have it, so you can do your work on it, stuff like that. But right now, I don't know this is going to be permanent. A solution to this. But anyway, long story short, it'll stay around for the duration of the course. After you log in using SSH, then you log in using MySQL, and you log into MySQL. The passwords are the same. One caveat: when you create a table, you're going to use the username as the starting. So for MySQL, users can create their own databases, and you'll have to create your own database to do this. And because inside of your own database object, you'll be creating your tables, and you'll be managing your objects. And when you create a database database, I'm going to see it in my database list because I have access to everybody. You only have access to your database when you create it. So you'll have full management privileges only to create the database under your username. So your database has to match your username because that's how I'm going to tell which database object is yours. After you send me that email, I'm going to link up the number with your name. I'm going to know who you are. So I'm going to go into my list, and I'm going to see your database. So here's how it works. Use the username. If I have a student 001, I'll create a database under a student. Well, actually, I shouldn't because you're going to do it, but only can create a database like student 001 underscore 01. That's not a bad just to do it that way. So you can say and create student 001 underscore 01 if you want, or 02, or 123, or ABC. Basically, use an underscore and put something in there. So the database starts out with your name, and then I know everything under there is your object, your objects. And I'm going to show you my view of it so you can kind of sort of see how that looks as well. So it means that users can add characters or multiple characters after the underscore, so make sure to use this syntax. So just write this down. It's the name of your account, student 001 underscore something. There's SQL Pro. I'm going to show you that in a few minutes, but let me show you how to log in just in case you're going to use terminal or you're going to use SSH client or something like that. If you're going to do it that way, you can do it that way. You can shell in using SSH client if you're on a Windows system. So we're still at the Unix prompt here. So if I go to my instructions over here, I see, didn't I bring that up? No, hold on one second. Not that one. Thought I had brought it up. Here it is. I did bring it up. First you log in using an SSH client. Then you log into mySQL. The way this works, and the only way I've been able to get this to work, because it doesn't take the password all on the same line for security reasons, because it would not support automated, it doesn't support automated logins. So you can't put it all together. So you have to do it this way. So if you're going to do this at a prompt, you're going to type in MySQL. Actually, I think I probably have it here. Here we go. MySQL/u, and then I'm root, but you're going to be student 001. And then -p, but don't put the password here. If you put the password here, it's not going to work. You actually have to go to the next line. Because if I do this, it's going to take me to the next line that says enter password. That's the only mode that's supported, because we don't want bots out there logging in. And you know, if you put it all on one line, it makes it too easy. So then paste your password in, or type your password in. I just pasted mine in. And then press return, and you should see a MySQL prompt, which means now I'm in MySQL. So if I'm at this particular screen, I have to use a database. Well, I'm going to have to create a database before I use a database. So if you look at these instructions down here, you can set the password for the username. You can log in. You can change things. But from this point forward, you have to sort of navigate. I'm going to show you an easier way of doing this. You just sort of have to navigate on your own. So I can, show databases as an example. And I've got a class database, I've got a MySQL database, and then I have to go, well, use database. Otherwise, I have to create a database. Well, you'll be using a create database. Oops, unknown database. So yes, how about use class? There we go. Show tables. There we go. I have a class set up. I put a couple of things in for the first lecture that we were going to go over. My students and my faculty. That's in my account. And then you have to use this command prompt if you're going to do it this way. And a lot of DBAs actually do it this way. Then you'd be typing in, create table, blah, 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 blah. And we went through all those lectures last time. About a day or so of SQL, which is why we did that. This is where you can use the SQL. Okay, so if you don't want to do it this way, here's plan B. So, and you know what, actually I prefer plan B. Download SQL Pro. So let me take it to a website here, tell you where to do. So simple little program, works on the Mac, works on the PC, works on everything. It's called SQL Pro. It's free, by the way. And MySQL Database Manager for OS X, but I'm getting the OS X page because I'm on a Mac. You'll get a different page on a Windows. You can also, instead of going to the main site, you can just type in download. And it'll probably take you automatically, yes it will, to a download now. But I'm getting the download for a Mac because I'm on a Mac. If you download it, you'll get a little file. You install the file. And then you may make a little desktop icon for yourself. Actually, here, let me exit out of this here. Exit out. If you need help with the settings, you can take a look at this as an example. And I can basically, here, you know what I'll do is I'll just take a screenshot of this. There we go. Just in case people need help with the settings. Yours is going to look like this, but instead of the word root, you're going to put student 001. You're logging into the same server using the same thing. And what you're doing, same ports and everything. And you can call your database something else. But I created this connection over here, and I saved the connection. So now all I have to do is press the button here. It says connect. It connects to SSH, connects to MySQL, and here I am at my databases. So now if I want to use my database, I come up here and say, well, let's just use class. Now I have a GUI. So I see in my list here faculty and students. Well, that's my faculty and students. This is like really nice. So then I can click on the query button here, and then I can still type in. I can go, select star from my underscore faculty. Now, I don't think I have anything in there, but then I can run here, and it's not going to come up with anything. There aren't any errors, but there's no rows. I don't have any table data in here, because all I did was run create commands to create the tables. So what I'm going to do now is, well, actually here. So if you're in your account, I can come back out to MySQL. I'm going to see your accounts in here. So I'm going to see student 001 underscore whatever you're going to call it. And I'm going to keep track of who you are by your database. These are all databases that are in the system. So I'll keep track of who you are by who your account is. And then that's how I'm going to link it all up. Because you're going to send me an email message to let me know what your account number is. And then I'll be able to put the two together. So then I can go ahead and I can switch and I can say, well, let's say if this was 001 or something, I can come in and say, oh, what did 001 create? Okay, they got it. I can take a look at everything. So the interesting thing here is we don't have anything, but we can actually go in and look at relations, create entity relationship diagrams, link things together. So SQL Pro actually works quite well as a GUI interface to it. And then you can come in here as an example and look under the structure. You can get the table information. Here's the table information. Look at the structure of the table. Add rows to it, remove rows to it. And then you can also click on the query button and run stuff. Insert into this table a couple of students and populate the data. So we'll be using, if you want to, you'll be using this as an interface to get into it. And if you want to see the console, you still have the information that's out here that is basically running the SQL commands for you that you're doing the GUI. So the GUI is just nothing more than running those SQL commands for you automatically. So inside of the database here on the table, you can actually, for tables, you can actually copy table syntax, remove, check things. You don't have to worry about turning anything in, because I can log in and I'm going to see it all live for you. That's the beauty of this whole setup. So you just do your stuff online. In fact, you can do your homework out here too if you want. If you want to create your tables for your entity relationship diagrams and do everything out here, that's fine. Just send me a link. Just tell me who you are and tell me where it is, and I can go look at it here, actually. Or you can just, take your notes and upload those to the EMS. You have to upload something to the EMS to submit assignments. You don't have to do anything for this project because I'll be looking at it out here for the stuff we'll be doing this afternoon. Okay, so those people who did not get accounts because you came in late, don't worry about it. At the first break, we'll give you some accounts. I just have to issue you a number because I see people are still coming through. So, unfortunately, not everybody's punctual. And we haven't done attendance yet, so you're in good shape. Don't worry about that. So, I'm going to start in now with the first lecture, and I want to show you something about the lecture. This is lecture number 3, by the way. I'm sorry? Port number is, if you're using, are you using SQL Pro or are you using the other? Well, actually, here, it doesn't, here, let me just go back to, the default, I think, is 3303 or something, but let's just take a look. The port number is 3306. It should be given to you. Just use the default port number. Any other questions from people who have account numbers who are setting things up? This doesn't take, I'm sorry? Yes. I can't see it because I'm logging in on a Mac, but there's a SQL Pro. If there's no SQL Pro, you can get another client, your choice of program for Windows. It does, I believe SQL Pro works on Windows. It should work on Windows. Oh, let's take a look. Oh, you probably have something wrong in your settings. Alternatives for Windows. Let's take a look here. You're right. Might just be supported on a Mac. SQL clients. There's SQL yog. You can also use, there's a couple, actually there's one called SSH client. You can use that on a Windows machine. You can use, I believe there's a DOS. If you can exit to DOS, there's a DOS SSH client command line version of it. But do this here. Let's just do it real quickly here. Windows MySQL clients. I'm sorry? HID? This one right here? So somebody's recommending this one. Actually, I've used Toad a very, very long time ago, but I haven't used this one. This one might be Heidi SQL. Heidi SQL is a good option for Windows people. Outside of going out and buying a Mac, that's really your only choice. Or not your only choice. You can use Toad for MySQL. MySQL Workbench. This is the other one I saw, SQL Yog. So Google, here I'll bookmark this page here for those people. Bookmark this page. You don't have to have it set up right now for what we're doing this morning. Windows. Yeah, SQL Pro might just be for, here we go, SQL Pro Windows. SQL Pro might just be for the Mac, actually. If you have a Mac, you're in good shape. Actually, if you're on Mac, you can just use terminal window too, but SQL Pro is a better option for you. Installs within seconds and it just works. So, except for you have to get your settings right. Here, I can go back to my settings page. Does your settings look like this? Does everything look like that on your screen? Oh, make sure you click on SSH on the top menu bar. You're not using standard. If you click on SSH, I'll just leave this up for a few minutes for those people who are interested in figuring this out. That's the host. It's the same host. It's the same host. It's the same password and it's the same username. But make sure you put database says MySQL. And then leave the port on 3306. Make sure you click on this SSH, the last tab. If you're using SQL Pro. If you're using another one, you'll have to go through some convoluted instruction. Did you get your setup? Yeah, see, it worked for you? Okay, good. Using a student account? Okay, good. So it does work. So I took a screenshot of this so I can show it to you later if you need to. I'm going to exit out of here. Close my connection. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just kind of go through another, it's kind of a review lecture, which is lecture number 3. Hold on a second, let me just make sure I got my numbering correct. Yeah, so this is lecture number 3. And lecture number 3, I'm going to show it to you in a Windows because this is preview. This is not PowerPoint, and I want to show it to you on PowerPoint. On PowerPoint, in the presenter's notes, under the lecture, these are the two tables I created actually. Because what you can do if you'd like to is install a SQL Pro or a client, or use the terminal prompt if you want to. Create the two tables, and this is the two tables. One is called My Faculty, the other one's called My Students. Here are the instructions for creating it. In fact, all you have to do is do this. You cut and paste. Let me just show you how to do it actually. Let me log back in after I logged back out. I'll just change the table name because I already have them created. If you download the original, you'll see that the word number, SSH failed. Let's connect to the server, requested timed out. Okay, let me just try it again. It could be the time of day where oh, there it goes, it connected. It could be the time of day where the server goes down. Just kidding. So in the query window, I'm pasting this in. Oops. Can I paste between Windows and the Mac? Let's see, copy. Paste. Yes, I can paste. And I don't know if there's any way of making this any bigger, but for SQL, I changed number to int, int, and I changed a variable character 2 to variable character. So it says VAR, CAR. wonder if there's a way of making this bigger. Window, zoom. Oh, well, let's see. Let me just try a different thing. Ah, look at that. It does come bigger. There we go. It's bigger. One of the good things I like about this is that it's actually color coding things for me. So I see that the data type, the built-in types, although I put them in caps, are they're definitely in blue. Create table. So I'm going to change the name of my table here. I'm going to call it another faculty. You'll be calling yours. Well, you're going to create your database, and if you're going to create your database, I'll show you that in a few minutes as well. Here I'm just going to run. If I run the current now, I have another faculty over here. See how easy it is, but I can use the SQL to create it if I want to. I highly recommend if you want to practice your SQL statements to do it this way. You don't have to. You can actually use the GUI tools. If you get this loaded, and you guys got this loaded, you can just say add database, and then add database with student underscore, student 001 underscore my database or whatever, ABC, or however you want to call it. And then you can add your databases in it. And then when I go back to the main SQL, and I'll see your database in here. Let's see if anyone, no one's created one yet. So most people are probably still trying to install your software. And then I'll see your database over here on my list. So, but if you want to do, you can do that for this lecture, actually. Because all of the commands in the lecture, you can practice using it this way as well. So what I'm going to do is kind of go over the PowerPoint and show you, actually I don't need this up anymore. I can shut this now. Save some memory on my computer. So what I'm going to do then is go through a review lecture that kind of gets us up to speed. And then we'll take a break for bio in about a half hour or so. And then we'll continue forward. So that's the game plan so far. So. And like I said, if you came in late, don't worry about it. The first break, catch me, and I'll give you a number. I have the numbering list over here. We do have 50 numbers. I don't think we have 50 people in the class, so we'll definitely have enough numbers for everybody. So using those two tables that I just showed you, that we just created, we're going to use using Oracle to add, view, and update data. So this is kind of a refresher on a few concepts. If you're using that terminal window, and if you're on Oracle, it actually says Oracle Plus. And you get a little, just like we got a little SQL prompt on ours, but mine said mySQL because we're logged into mySQL. Same concept exists with Oracle. And if you're going to use that terminal or SSH, what ends up happening then is you have the, how am I going to remember all this stuff? I have to keep typing in stuff. So most likely you're going to save your scripts in terms of, and put them in files. And if you do that, you can just load the file. So the script, is what I'm calling it, is a text file that contains sequences of SQL commands. And so you can start with a path to a script file, including the name of the file. And then the path cannot contain any blank spaces. Well, actually, believe it or not, nor can your database names. So make sure you don't put any blank spaces. Actually, I did that already. And I realized, because I put database space class and using SQL Pro, and then I realized I can't go out to a SQL prompt and work with that. So here is just an example of, I took a bunch, let's say for example, you wanted to take a bunch of scripts. What are the scripts going to be? Probably all your table creation commands. So you can put it all in one file, load the file up, start the file. And if you do that, you're going to do this. And what start does is just say run the file. So is it really a script? Kind of a loose interpretation of a script. It's basically a bunch of saved commands that you're going to run in the SQL window. So once you have the tables built, and this file here actually just creates the tables. I just created those tables a few minutes ago, the students and the teachers. You can insert a value into every field in the table by using insert into table along with the values. This is a review from the last weekend because it's been probably about a month or so since I've seen you guys. So probably about a month, I think. Which is funny because our next class is like only a week away. It's like one weekend away. So we're bunched up at the end. So let's see. If you use this technique, you have to put a null in for every field that is missing. So fields must be entered in the order that they appear in the table. And then you can use describe. So if I had a, let's see if I still have that out there actually. Just connect in here. Now that I have this set to really big font. Oops, it's not set to a big font. Now let's see. I'm going to go into my class. And if I typed in describe, or DES, but I think actually could type in the whole word described, my_faculty. I'm going to get the results showing up down below, and it's going to show me that I have an ID and a name, and I have an integer with a variable character 30. And they can be null, no problem, because I didn't actually specify don't set them to null when I ran it. So describe is a good one. Use is a good one to figure out which one you're going to work with. Let me close this down so I don't get back to that one. But the describe command will describe it for you. So after you enter in commands, an example here, enter into faculty values. Let's see. We'll just put, well, actually, let's put some data in here. Values 1, comma Professor Wilson. So if I come back up here, I go inserts into my faculty values, and I'm going to insert 1, and I'm going to insert in here Barb. Let's just put my name in there. And then I run it on the bottom. I don't get anything. Actually, I don't get anything here anyway. But if I go into my faculty, I click on it, and or I show the content, I see Barb. So it's very much like, well, this interface is very much like Microsoft Access, actually. But I see 1 and Barbara in here. So the beauty of this screen here is I could stack up a bunch of stuff in a what do you call it, a script or a file. And the file content could actually just sort of look like this, and I can go here, Henry. I don't know, just make that 3 is going to be, let's just put Bob in here. Bob and Larry. There we go. And then I'm hopefully, well, I don't know if I have any unique keys in here, but if I go here and I look at the contents now, I may have got a mistake. Oh, there we go, Barb and Bob. Well, Barb is only going to be put in once, and Bob. And I'm like, what happened with this guy here? Let's say run previous. The interface is not quite, let's see. Well, it's okay. You see Bob got put in there. I don't know what happened to the second one. There was probably a problem with it. Larry. No, there was no problem with it. So let's take Bob out. See if we can get Larry in there. Larry's not getting into this. Oh, we got Bob in a couple times. Now we got Larry. Didn't refresh it, so the screen wasn't refreshing for me automatically. So depending upon what toolset you're using, if you're going to use a GUI, you have to make sure that the GUI, because the GUI is only connecting to the database and running commands to show the tables, to do a select on the table. So when you go ahead and click on contents, it's doing a select all. So now I got Bob in there many times, so if I wanted to now I could delete a row from the database and work with it that way. So it's kind of interesting. A lot of people prefer to use this instead of learning the GUI. So, and you have, you know, depending upon the database you're working with, you might have any number of applications that you could use to connect to it. So to commands to insert for selected rows or selected fields, or if you remember from last time, again, this is more review. We can insert into table column 1, column 2, values, value 1, value 2. So in this particular case, now I can enter into my students, and these are the ones I'm going to insert in. I'm going to insert the name and the age, and I'm going to put the values Jason and 21 in there. So if I copy this one in here, that's going to work as well. So, and you could go, I'm not going to, it's too tedious, I'm not going to go ahead and build this. But, well, actually, maybe I should put something into students, because then I can run the queries on it. So if I come back up and put something into students, as you see, I got Larry up there. If I don't want to know the order, I can insert into my students as an example. And I can put S underscore name, because that's what I called it, and S underscore age. And I can put the values in, and the values are going to be Jason and he's 21. And then if I run it in my students table, I should have Jason and 21 in there. And here he is here. But I didn't put anything in for date of birth, and I didn't put anything in for the class that he's in, whether he's a sophomore, junior, senior, or whatever. So you can kind of sort of see you have some flexibility in terms of the way you're entering the data. We also have format masks that we can use. So all the data is stored in the database is in a standard binary format. So we can use an alphanumeric text string that specifies the format of the input and the output data. So in table 3.1 and 3.2, the number format, date format, character format that we could use. In fact, that's what we have. So over here, we're going to insert the date values using the date format. So the date values must be converted from a character to a date in order for it to be used, in order for it to be inserted. And you could try this out just simply by leaving out the date to to-date conversion, because we have a date in my students. And in my students, we have, if we look at the structure of the database, we see it's a date format. And the date format here is specified out when we put it in, and when we ran the code to put it in, you go back to slide number 1, look down beneath, and you'll see the syntax for how that was defined, actually. So then we can see that we can simply, oops, let me close this window too. Simply use it to insert in the right format. So I could cut and paste this. Unfortunately, it's an image, so I can't cut and paste it, but I could type this in to the SQL plus, or to the mySQL window, query window, and run it the same way. So in terms of inserting the text data, you must enclose it with single quotes if you remember, and it's also case sensitive. So we saw this again, so this is where we're still reviewing from last time. I think it was Bob's Beer House or something, or Joe's Bar, with a apostrophe for Joe's. Here's Mike's Motorcycle Shop. So we have this concept called transactions. So when we're typing in all these SQL commands, we have this logical unit of work that's going to consist of more than one of these commands. So we have the data manipulation language commands, again a little bit review, insert, update, delete. We have the data definition commands, which are going to be our create, drop, truncate, defining the data. All the commands work, and then they all can be considered, in terms of the DML, they can also be considered part of all of the same transaction. So all transaction commands must succeed, or none of them should be committed. So the transaction results are not visible to other users. And by the way, in this particular window, I have an auto commit. So if I click on the query here and I just say commit, it doesn't really do anything because it's automatically committed. If I did a rollback, oh, I just did a commit, but if I did a rollback, it would remove Bob and Larry because it keeps track of a history of all of the people that I put, all the commands that I did. If I don't do anything and I exit the window, I automatically get a commit. So it's the same thing you're going to get from an SSH client as well if you use that. So were you able to get it connected? You still? Really? Which student number were you? Oh, so at the break I'll help you do it. So I was just kind of curious. Alright, so the transaction results are not visible until you actually do a commit. So as an example, you're logging in, you're creating the student databases. I can come in and I can actually simultaneously manipulate your data and look at your data. And we can have multiple clients all connected, all looking at it. Well, when am I going to see your new data? It's when you do a commit. So what a commit's going to do is going to come out and refresh it in the table. So before the auto commit was working, but it wasn't working instantaneously because I kept switching back and forth between screens. But theoretically, it should be, immediately because of that environment that I'm in. You can make the settings and turn off the auto commit, but most of the GUI applications have an auto commit to it. So let's see, we can, until a transaction is committed, you can easily roll everything back. You can't roll it back after you commit it. So in terms of the transaction starts with one or more DML commands, and then it ends with a commit or a rollback. So if you're going to put it into the file, you put all your commands in the file, put a commit at the end, or rollback, or manually put the commit or rollback in after you've run the file. That way you can tell if something actually worked or didn't work. So committing and rolling back the data So the commit makes the transaction command, the changes themselves permanent in the database and visible to the other users. Rollback restores it back to a safe place before the transaction occurred. We can also put what's called save points into the data. So if we save a point, we can commit and roll back up to different save points, which is not a bad idea if you have a really long script and you're not quite sure what happened. You can roll back to a certain point. You don't have to start all the way back from the beginning, depending upon how long you've got that window open and what you're doing. So it's used to mark individual sections of the transaction. And you can roll back to the transaction to any save point. So here we created a save point order save. And then after we create the save point, it's like a bookmark. It's like, okay, right now, in this particular moment of time, create this save point. I'm actually kind of curious if the save points work in here. Let's see. Yep, save point now, or right now. Right now 1. And then I've created a save point, so then I can insert something, do something, create another save point. And then I could roll back to order line saved. Here it is, order line saved. So I can roll back to one of my save points. And then I can commit to a certain point, or don't have to roll back all the way to the beginning. Because here I don't necessarily need, because let's say I made a mistake further down the road, I don't necessarily need to roll back all the way to the beginning. So, and all these Oracle commands, by the way, work. They work out in mySQL as well. So, updating records. So in terms of updating records, the records can be updated one at a time, or you can update all of them at the same time. So you can update multiple records if they match a search condition. And we looked at this last time as well. Updating a table, set the column is equal to a new value, and column 2 is equal to another value where something exists. So where, if I wanted to go through and update that table to get rid of all the bobs that were in there, I could update it to set the value to duplicate where the name is equal to Bob or something. And it would change all of them that were equal. So in terms of the search conditions, just to refresh your memory, we have the where clause. In the where clause, we have a field name, an operator, and expression. So where something is equal to something, not equal to something, like, between, in, not in, if you remember the beers example we did last time. So search condition examples here where S name is equal to Sarah, or S age is larger than 18, or not equal to SR, the class for senior. So the text is a single quote, and it's case sensitive. So we can delete from a table where a search condition exists. So I can delete from my students where, was it my students? Let's see. One of these has got a ton of Bobs in it. Maybe it's another faculty. No, I think it's my faculty. Yeah, so if I were in here, my faculty, so I can delete from my faculty where, what was it, name? Is it S underscore name or name? F, I think it's F underscore name is equal to Bob. An error. So the syntax of the manual corresponding to the mySQL trend version where, it's, yeah, you're right, it's the from. Delete, no, that was going to delete from. Oh, I had to, oh, I see, I mistyped from. Yeah, I was going to say, I have to put the from in there. So now you actually got a good example of it didn't understand the command. So the errors are going to show up on the bottom if you're using this interface. So now if I go back into, what is it, my faculty? Yes. I see now I have Larry and I have Barbara. I got rid of all those Bobs I stuck in there. So comes in handy. I got rid of 5 different Bobs instead of just one. So deletes everything. Searching, you can also search a condition is omitted. You can delete the whole table. You can't, if you just say delete from my students, everything's going to be gone unless you put a where condition in there. So you can't delete a record if it contains a primary key value. We didn't actually put any keys in this table, so we could do a bunch of stuff to it. Now we can truncate a table. So it removes all of the rollback information if we truncate it. So it removes all the table data without saving any rollback information. Advantages is it's very fast because as you create tables and you start dropping tables and delete the table, if you delete the table, you're just going to delete the table data. If you drop the table, you're going to delete the table, but you're going to have rollback information. If you truncate the table, you get rid of it completely. So there's no rollback, no table, no data inside of the table, which is time consuming if the runtime or the environment of the GUI that you're using is saving all of that information. That could slow down your system, especially if you've done it like 5 times and it's a lot of data. So truncate comes in handy when you want to be efficient. The only problem is you can't undo something. So as we mentioned before, we have this thing called a sequence. The sequences are lists of numbers that are automatically generated by the database, and you use it to generate keys for surrogate keys when one may not exist. So a sequence, you create a sequence. Actually, I wonder if the mySQL supports sequences. It's a good question here. So create a sequence. Nope, probably doesn't. It may not be supported unless I'm spelling it sequence. I don't believe this is supported in mySQL. MySequence. It's probably called something else. Let's just see what happens when I run it. Yeah, it's not going to recognize sequence. So this is an Oracle specific command for sequences. Why? Because you're creating a sequence and it's going into the into the admin tables, roots tables, and it can be used in any other tables. So, and the sequence is just basically a list of numbers. I believe mySQL supports something like it, but doesn't call it sequence. It calls it something else. You don't have to do any of these specialized things for any of the assignments, so don't worry about it. You won't have to simulate this. But as an example here, you're starting a sequence with faculty underscore sequence. Start with 200, and then it's kind of like a check number. So you can have 201, 202, 203, and it doesn't reuse the numbers. So if it started out with 200 and it's on 210, it's just going to give you the next sequence, 11, 12, and it's kept in a table that's viewable by all of the, well, all users if you make it a user level table. And then all of the values that are taken from it are only used once. So multiple tables can use the same sequence. So it's not like putting an index in a table. Instead, what it's doing is creating a lookup, kind of a global numbering list. It's a better way of doing it. So you can view the sequence information by selecting star from user sequences. We don't have user sequences, so you can't do this in the mySQL window. But if you were logged into an Oracle system, that would work for you. There may not be any sequences, but here's those 3 sequences in this particular example, and it gives you the last number that was issued, along with the values. So remember those pseudo columns? We can create a column as something else. Well, so it acts like a column in a database query. Are we going to do attendance? That's fine. Let me just pause my, I just want to stop my lecture then. I'll pause. I'm going to break this lecture out, and this is part 1, and then I'm going to continue it in a few minutes with part 2.